Welcome to 30 Minutes of Faith. We're very happy to have Gordon Orchard with us today from the Family Search Library on Eastern Avenue, said library belonging to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you. I'm excited to meet you, excited to be here today.
Tell us where you started life and grew up and about your family and high school and all of those things, please.
I was born in Sacramento, California, and I lived here in Sacramento all my life. I went to Sacramento High School, and when I went there, it looked different than it does now, of course. They tore it down. They haven't torn me down yet, but I'm getting pretty old. And I just became an electrician, lived in Sacramento until just recent years, and I moved out to Granite Bay.
Children?
I had 6 children. They're all grown and married, except for one we lost when he was 16 years old. Well, he got cancer at 16, and he died at just barely 17 years old.
I'm sorry to hear that. Parents shouldn't have to bury their children.
No, it's not the normal way, is it?
It's not the normal way. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have 2 brothers, one 2 years older and one 2 years younger.
And are they still living?
They are, yeah.
Now, how did you end up in Sacramento? I mean, family here a long time?
My mother and father moved before I was born. He worked for a sugar factory in northern Utah, just a little community, and they all raised sugar beets around there, and they had some kind of a crop failure for a couple of years. He had to find other employment, and at that time they were just finished building the sugar factory in Clarksburg, which now is turned into something different. But and so he came as their bookkeeper, and then he eventually got a job with the state and became a CPA, and was only a CPA for just a little short time, and he died at a very early age. I was 4 and a half when he died.
Wow.
We had moved out to Fair Oaks at that time, had 20 acres, and so then we had to move back into the city because my mother couldn't take care of us out there.
And that old-time Fair Oaks and Orangeville and that were really orchards, weren't they?
There was. I can remember the smell of oranges, blossoms. It was so strong. And when I would drive, years later, I drove out there and I told my wife, I can just smell and feel I'm close to my old house.
When I was a young father, we lived off of Madison and down below Dewey when the Sunrise Mall was built. And it seemed to me like it just sat out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And you'd drive out and they'd say, oh, a new mall out there. And it'd be out in the trees, and that was very interesting. Now, you're the director at the Family Search Library.
Yes.
What does that entail?
That just entails that we just keep everything functioning. We used to have about 100 staff. We are down to about 82 now because we have a number of volunteers that are missionaries. They serve a mission for the church of a year or so, and they work more hours. And so we don't have to have as many staff. We have, I think it's 11 shifts because we're open 5 days a week. And then we're open on Saturday once a month. And so it takes a lot of people to man the library. And so that's, my wife is actually, she's a co-director, and that's her main responsibility is staffing. Does a wonderful job. We have an excellent staff. Many of them are fairly new and learning, but there's some that have been around for a long, long time and are so knowledgeable.
Do you have to be a Mormon to be on staff there?
No, you don't. In fact, we've had some that have been there for 20-something years, uh, and they're not members of the church, but they love the work.
Now, let's say that I decided I want to find family and I don't know anything about it. I'm a neophyte. I've never given it any thought except yesterday. And somebody says, go down to the library on Eastern Avenue, and I do, and I walk in the door. What's going to happen to me?
Well, that'd be good advice, because we have some people. I'm going to give you one example. We have a Glenda Lloyd, who's not a member of the church. She was a school teacher. And when she went to some kind of a family history lecture one time, and it got her all excited about it, and she says, I want to do that someday. And now she's the finest presenter in Sacramento area, and she just knows from beginning to end. And people come in and they'll sit down with somebody like her, and they give her a tour and tell you what's available, but then they'll sit you down in front of a computer and they'll say, where are you? What do you want to know? What do you know? Because you always start with what you know.
Sure.
And many times people come in and they know some things about that were told by an uncle. They know some things that might have been told by their father or their mother, but they don't have any organization to it. And it's hard sometimes to communicate like that because they bounce from this relative to that relative. And so they give them a pedigree chart and they start them out. Here's your name, here's your father, mother, and they put down as much information as they know. And then they take them into FamilySearch.org and see if there's any tie there with other relatives that have put information in.
Would there usually be a tie somewhere?
Many times there are. If you go back, you have to go back to dead people, though.
Oh, yeah.
See, Family Search is great for dead people, but if you're looking for a brother or somebody that's still alive, or a grandfather that's still alive, he's not going to be in there, because for the protection of living people, that kind of things doesn't apply. Also, the same thing in Ancestry. Ancestry is a great source. But you see, if you come to our library, that's a $300 a year subscription. You come to our library, you can use it for free. We have what's called a portal. And in the portal, we have paid subscriptions that people can just view on our computers for free. It's a great service. It's a great thing.
How many people can be served at one time?
We have 28 that are available. Then we have a few extra if very crowded. And we have laptops. When we bring in youth groups now and then, and we just fill the place up. And we bring out laptops, and they can get online on the laptops. So we've had as many as 30 to 40 people there at one time.
Now, our grandchildren, we have 22 grandchildren. A couple of them are interested. The others think it's somewhere out there a million miles away. Why do people at some point in their life decide to go search for family?
I don't know. It's something within them that just drives them. But the thing that's beautiful is, like yourself, if you've done a lot of work and you've spent many hours and you've gathered all this history, this information, there is a place that when your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, and you might skip a generation, you never know, become interested, there's a place they can go. They go to FamilySearch.org, they tie into you, and in there you have put your history, your grandfather's history, your great-grandfather's history. You have all that information. They can go in there and see pictures. They can see now, they can even hear your voice if you record it. And it's all saved. Pictures don't last forever. I have pictures I can hardly recognize anymore because they're fading. And I put them in my computer and, revitalize them. But if you put them on in FamilySearch.org, they'll stay there for, I don't know, forever. They're just going to be around for a long time.
I walked through a cemetery in England about 10 years ago where a whole bunch of my mother's family had been christened and married and buried through a 300 or 400 year period of time. And because a whole bunch of the headstones there were made out of sandstone,
They're faded.
all that was standing there was just a chunk of sandstone. I mean, you
Yes.
could see a mark or two. Fortunately, the rector had kept, good records, and you could go in and see that. And he would march you out to a certain plot and 3 steps to the left and, XXX, and say, well, here's where your great great grandfather was buried. And there was a nice big tall marker, 4 feet tall, but you couldn't read anything on
Right.
it
I've
at all.
seen the same thing.
Yeah.
When we were in England, my wife, our people are mostly from there, and she wanted to go to this church where her great-great-great-grandmother had been married, and we found the church, had directions. It was hard to find. It was out in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful country, England has this beautiful country. But to get there, we had to go through some farmlands that had these hedges on both sides, 20 foot high. It's like going
This
through
narrow sometimes.
very narrow, but it was like going through a maze. But we had directions. We got there, and of course it was a Saturday. The church is closed. We wanted to go in so bad. But on the outside, they put the warden's name and the pastor's name. Well, the warden is the one that takes care of the records, and we wanted to see the records if they had them. So we took down the phone number, and she had a cell phone. She called. No bars. Couldn't make a cell phone from there. We were so discouraged. So we drove away. And as we was driving away, I thought, I'm not going to pay attention. I know there's a freeway over this direction. It's beautiful country. I'm just going to go till I hit the freeway. I drove for maybe 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. All of a sudden, my wife screams, I got bars. Stop the car. Where am I going to stop the car? We're in England. There's no place to stop.
And you're driving on the wrong side of the road.
And the wrong side of the road to begin with. Anyway, I found a place to pull over, and she called. Well, she doesn't get the warden, she gets the warden's wife. It's Saturday. He has a honey-do list a mile long that he's been putting off. Today's going to be the day. So how does she answer? She says, he's not here. My wife, she says, oh my gosh, we come all the way from California, the United States, just to see these records, blah, 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 blah. Finally, the lady says, just a minute. She hands the phone to him. He says, okay, here's the deal. If you can be there in 15 minutes, I'll let you in. I had no idea. I don't have the world's greatest memory. And I had no idea how I got to where I was. And I drove, and then I come to so I turn left, or I turn right, I turn left. So I turn right. I kept making these judgments through the maze, and all of a sudden, there's the church. So we go inside. He goes down the basement. Most churches had to turn their original records in. They had not. He brings up these 2 books, sets them on a table, dusts them off, opens them up. They were just like they had written them that day. The paper was white. It was clear writing. It was gorgeous. She just scans through a little bit and sees in 1750-something, her ancestor was the warden.
Wow.
Now she's
very exciting, isn't it?
She was the Queen of England. He couldn't do enough for her. Set her all up. He left, and we were there for 2 hours, photographing all the records that we wanted out of that original book. What a great experience.
But family history search is like going through a maze often, is it not?
Absolutely. But it's wonderful. That's why we have a library, to help people through the maze. Haven't you had something go wrong and you couldn't fix it? And so you call somebody and say, I'm having this problem. And as you describe the problem, all of a sudden, in your own mind, you remember the solution, or you think of the solution. Well, it's the same way when you sit down with somebody in a library and you talk back and forth. We get helps. I think the people want to help you, number one. But number two, just verbalizing back and forth, you get helps from people.
Would you say that most of the people who come to the library go away happy? I mean, some of them go away frustrated.
Well, there's always a frustrating day, but I think I see people come to tears. Makes me. I mean, they just literally tears come to their eyes. They are so happy with it. They say, I've been looking for 20 years for my grandmother. I couldn't find her anywhere. This is only a grandmother. 20 years. They go in, and in 20 minutes, they found them. See, everything's being digitized now. The church has, disneyfamilysearch.org, they have how many? 150,000 people digitizing? Records that weren't digitized yesterday are digitized today, and you can find them so much quicker. It's amazing.
Do the people that come into the library, I mean, are they there for 30 minutes? Are they there for 3 hours? What's
Yes.
Both, huh?
Some people come in and they're there for a specific thing. They find what they want and they're gone. Other people, they'll skip lunch. They're into it. They're having success. They get. You go back in where you're viewing films, because we have, the church has this vault in Salt Lake area in the mountains. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
I've been in the vault.
have you?
I have.
Most people have it. I mean, they go half a mile into the solid granite rock, 500 feet down. Atomic bomb wouldn't affect it. The temperature's 50 degrees, 55 degrees all the time. They have water, their own watering system inside. Keep it all perfect. They say the film will last 200 years in there. Well, they got billions of records in there. Well, anybody can order any of those films, and they sent to our library. And for 3 months, for about $7 to $8 it costs to have them ship it to us, they can view it for 3 months, and then they ship it back. The thing that's interesting is if they pay a little more, like double probably, they never ask for it back. So we have in our little library 5,500 films that, if it just happens that that's what you're looking for, you don't even have to order. You can just come down. It's there anytime you want it. And they go in. We have viewers. We have scanners. We have one scanner. It's a $5,000 scanner. It's just gorgeous. And it blows up. It clarifies things. And then they can print it for 10 cents a copy, or they can save it to their flash drive for nothing. And so it doesn't cost anything to come to our library to use the facilities.
What percentage of people using that library are not LDS?
Over 50%.
That's good.
Yeah. It's a great resource for anyone.
Now, Sharon was here earlier, and we talked about the African American family history thing. What made that start up to where it was time now for us to get with our African American brothers and sisters and go find their histories?
I'm not sure just exactly who had the idea, but I thought it was a great idea.
Absolutely.
And they contacted the African American community, and I think they had one down, what's the name of that center? I forget it. Anyway, down near Florin Road in Sacramento. And then they invited them to come to our library. We have some great facilities for a seminar. We have projectors and, all the things so they can have 6 things going on at the same time. Classes. But it's been a great thing. They really, we benefit from it. One way that we benefit from it is I've noticed since the last one, it was just a great seminar, this last one.
I agree.
Good feeling there, a lot of great classes, good instructors. But we see now almost every day an African American couple or a family come in to do their research that were motivated because of that seminar. And we have two real experts. One on Wednesday morning, um, Margaret King. They have, what's the name of those records they have? So, slave, forget the term, anyway, slave records anyway. And she's an expert on interpreting and helping people with
She
those.
really knows her stuff on that.
Really does. And then there's, I can't remember anybody's name, Myra Brown, who's on Thursday. And she's a real expert. She's the one that helped Sharon put the book together that she gave at the seminar. And just a wonderful person.
How about in Sacramento proper, are we seeing others use the library, the Latinos or the Slavic language people or the Asian people? Are there other people who are also using the library?
Yes, they're not as many. We have an expert that's a Danish expert. We have somebody who's really, what was the other ones that you said? Anyway, we have experts in different areas. German, we have a group. A representative always comes on Thursday afternoon from the German Genealogical Society of some sort. And they always have a representative there. And we have a section of books that's large. It's got to be 8 foot by 8 foot, all German-related research books. And so we had a person come in, a couple came in from Monterey, California, just a week or so ago. Drove all the way because they heard about our book selection and they heard about there was an expert there. They came at noon. And I says, well, they're usually not here till 1 o'clock. They said, we'll wait. They were very patient. And come 1 o'clock, nobody shows up. So I called somebody that I knew, and they says, oh, the person that's normally there has moved away. What are we going to do? And they gave me another phone number, and there was a lady there that's over it, and she's from Germany, just and outstanding. She lived close. She came over, and about, gosh, it couldn't have been an hour later, they walked out, the two walked out, grinning from ear to ear. Whatever it is they wanted, they found, and she helped them. And we see that time and time and time again. That's where the helpers, that's why people volunteer, because they see the joy that people have when they find something. Just pure joy.
Well, and Sacramento is very diverse, and California is very diverse. And, you know, as time races on, what used to be just sort of the American colony will be a very, very small percentage of what's there. And I'm hoping the libraries everywhere and the search engines and that can stay current with that.
We have one fellow that is Chinese. He spent a few years over in China doing family history work in China. He was telling me about a family he found in 1730 BC.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
pretty good. Yeah. And I mean, he had the records all the way back to 1700 before Christ. They have some fantastic records in China. Not too many of us can help people there, but we do have this great source.
How old were you when you decided you wanted to make these pursuits?
Well, I remember watching my mother when I was just a little guy, and she was interested in it. And she was a widow, but she purchased one of those wide typewriters so she could do remember the old forms? You had to have a special typewriter. And I can remember her sitting there. I would fall asleep and wake up in the middle of the night, seemed like to me, and she was typing away. But she would tell me these stories, but I had a hard time remembering who the story belonged to. And so years later, when I had my own family and that, all of a sudden I remembered these stories, and I had some copies of these stories, but I didn't have any organization to it. and I wanted to share them with my children, but I couldn't, and so I had to do some research and organize some things, which was fun.
I think sharing is the funnest part of it all. You discover something, find an old letter, an old certificate, or old photo, or whatever. And in this day and age, it can be scanned in and sent all over the world, and everybody oohs and ahs and raves about, I've always wondered what he looked like or what she sounded like and those kinds of things. How long have you been the director with your wife, the co-directors?
Oh, just a little over a year, but we were 5 years the assistants.
And is this a calling that lasts until you say you don't want to do it anymore? Or?
Well, I think we'll just until it released. Actually, we were recently, about a year ago, we were called to be missionaries. So that does have an end. It's a 3-year mission. So I don't know exactly. But
what will you do when you're not the co-directors?
I'll probably die. I'm 78. I'm getting so old. I don't even buy green bananas anymore.
Well, 78 seemed old when I was a kid. It doesn't seem so old.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Yes, I feel good.
And we have my wife's 90-year-old mother living with us, and we've been doing a bunch of family history. She's been going through identifying people and photos, and it's of interest to me because she said, oh yeah, that was, the year I turned 16.
Oh, how fun.
And that's, so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so
Yes.
and so. And it doesn't mean anything to me, but as I write it down and record it and attach it, I think in the family search, because our grandchildren are adding photos by the dozens weekly, and they'll look at that and say, oh yeah, that was, Gordon Orchard when he was 15 years old. Well, I'm glad to find that. Well, we're coming to an end, so I need to ask you a favorite question. If you could wave a magic wand to fix or repair or make something new again in the world, what would it be?
Well, as the director, I would like to make the library bigger. There's so many things you could do to invite whole families in if you had a little more room, so you could separate it.
Are there plans for that?
There was, and the economy kind of squelched them for now, but that's where we stand at the moment. The other thing is, I loved the 50s when I was a teenager. The morals of the country. I love the technology now, but I love the morals of the country. In the 50s, it was better.
A little simpler, a little purer time, seems
Right.
like. Thank you, Gordon. It's nice
pleasure.
to visit with you.
Nice.
Appreciate you being here, and
Thank you.
wish you Godspeed and good luck in this family search.
Appreciate it. Thank you very
Take
much.
care.